Well, they've crashed everything else. Will the Occupy movement now crash the Tea Party? Hi, I'm Shawn Akers, Vice President for Middle Eastern Affairs with Liberty Counsel. And joining me today in studio is our very special guest, Ron Miller, the author of Sellout, Musings from Uncle Tom's Porch. And he is also a social and political commentator. Ron, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You know, one of the things that has absolutely amazed me lately, Ron, is that many of the political figures that have been so vehemently opposed to the Tea Party, calling them terrorists and everything else, have now come out and not only supported the Occupy movement, but have in many ways and sometimes directly equated that movement with the Tea Party movement. That seems a little striking.
Just a little bit. I looked at the recent statistics, and I don't think I saw any indications where the Tea Party movement had any arrests or civil disobedience issues that led to legal action or police action. And I think that they tended to use the porta potties rather than police cars and public parks.
You know, the list seems to be extremely long on the differences. In fact, I mean, it's in many ways like comparing a ticker tape parade with the capture of Cairo recently by the Arab Spring movement. There's not much of a physical comparison in the way the two parties act. And another one is, and this is one that really is important, is when you see things that people try to equate, Ron, it's always good to trace back the political foundations and the philosophical foundations for those. You know, you're known by who you take your ideas from. When you look at the Tea Party, where did they take their name and where did they get this persona that they've adopted? You know, they got that from a group of American revolutionaries, the primordial revolutionaries, the pre-revolutionaries that said, you know what, we're not going to allow our God-given rights to be trampled on by a tyrant. So when you send us our own tea, but you're making us pay these taxes without representation, we're going to have ourselves a little tea party and show you a form of protest that says we don't need your luxuries. We value liberty over provision, over luxury. It was very much a liberty over luxury movement. Now, when we look at the ideological forefathers and the supporters for the Occupy movement, we come up with a band of characters that we've seen recently. Let me name a few. One of them is Bill Ayers was recently quoted as or named as one of the teachers of the Occupy movement. And we know a little bit about Bill Ayers. We've seen his name before, haven't we?
Yeah, we've seen it in a few places, and I would question his liberty credentials, certainly.
You know, another one that came up that was rather striking was Jim Wallace. The gentleman has now opened his church to the Occupy movement. We've seen his name come up recently as well.
In fact, he's been going around the country lately debating the folks who support liberty and free enterprise and the rights of people to keep the products of their blood, toil, tears, and sweat, and basically using the Bible in ways that I'm sure it was never intended to support things that I don't think would be advocated by any person that believes in liberty and freedom of conscience.
Rod, let me read you a few of the recent headlines that deal specifically with the Occupy movement. And try to imagine, you know, it hasn't been that long ago that there was no Occupy movement, but there was a Tea Party. And we saw headlines about the Tea Party. I can't imagine these particular headlines. Let me read a few for you. Protest snarls Los Angeles freeway traffic. That's one. New York protesters chant, "Follow those kids," as small children try to go to school. That's another headline. Occupy the subway is another headline. So they're impeding public traffic. Here's another one. Flees lice fears at San Francisco camp. That's another one. Bill Ayers teaches Occupy Chicago. You know, we didn't see these type of revolutionary. These are the type things that you see in the streets of foreign countries. We have not seen these type things in the United States except with the far left movement that really does idolize the way other countries, not the United States, does business.
In fact, you could add to that list the reports of assaults being perpetrated within the camps, and they even had an interesting report where Jon Stewart, of all people, mocked the Occupy movement because it seems that among them they have divided into classes, and it's just a mockery of the very things they claim to represent. You know, I've been involved in the Tea Party movement. I was the master of ceremonies for the very first Tea Party in the state of Maryland, which I affectionately refer to as the People's Republic of Maryland. And I attended the big rally on September 12, 2009. And if you really want to know what the Tea Party movement looked like to me, it looked like a family picnic. And I couldn't get over how it represented a cross-section of people that I see every day, whether I'm shopping at Walmart or I'm taking my kids to sporting events. These are everyday Americans who took time out of their very busy lives, from their jobs, from their families, to express themselves, and then they went home. They left the place that they visited cleaner than it was, and they then became involved in the political process, as is the tradition. The people that we're looking at now don't really care about the political process. They're just trying to create chaos.
You know, I've spoken to some of those Tea Party groups as well. I've never felt more welcomed. I've never seen more people that were excited about their country. They're worried. They're concerned. You bet. But they were there to find out, in the spirit of 1776, how do we go about governing ourselves? How do we participate in this government that we've been so blessed to be a part of? I didn't see anybody threatening to throw Molotov cocktails into Macy's. I didn't see anybody bloodying police officers. I didn't see anybody doing things that can't even be mentioned on air that could be caught by cameras in full view. I didn't see anybody going after young school children trying to make it to class. You just didn't see these things. But here's what we do see. We mentioned Bill Ayers, and we mentioned Jim Wallace, and I'll tell you another one that I see. You can't get past his ghost here. If you look at the Occupy movement, you see the teachings of Saul Alinsky at work. This is a completely Saul Alinsky tactic.
It's amazing to me, if we really examine rules for radicals and we look at things that have happened since 2008, working their way through to the present day, it's quite apparent that people are trying to exercise everything that he's proposed, and those of us who understand that are trying to educate the rest of the country. And you know what? It is working, because I saw a recent poll where people who were watching the Occupy movement and who were initially sympathetic to the idea that there is too much of an influence between government and big business, what we've seen now is they're saying, well, wait a minute, this is not the way to do it. And they're starting to lose support in the public, to the point where now they have a negative view of the Occupy movement as opposed to how they initially started. And I'd like to make one point that I find very interesting. They say that their protest is against the undue influence of corporatism within the government. And I am an opponent of crony capitalism. You know, I want to see the free markets be truly free. That means that you go out there, you take the risks, you do the work, and if you create something that the market wants, you succeed. If you don't, you pick yourself up and you start over again, and everyone has an equal opportunity. But their solution to this collusion between big government and big business is more big government, and that is completely illogical.
You know, it doesn't make any sense at all. There are a variety of things about this movement that are entirely inconsistent internally and inconsistent with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. It's amazing that it has had the kind of acceptance among some seated in our own halls of power. And you see something. Tomorrow we'll continue our discussion of the Tea Party versus the Occupy movement. You don't want to miss that. because we can go a little deeper into our understanding of what's driving each and what, as citizens of the United States, you can do. Now, if you would like to support what we're doing here at Liberty Counsel, you can always find us on the web at www.lc.org, and you can reach us online at 1-800-671-1776.